All right, well, let's get started. I want to thank everyone for showing up today to learn about iOS 14. What is it, how to navigate it, and all the effects of it on Facebook and Google platform. So super excited to go ahead and introduce ourselves and kind of get things started. Also, as the webinar is going on, please feel free to post your questions inside the chat below. And at the end of the webinar, at the end of this presentation, we will go ahead and answer all of your questions. So please use the time to get anything you have in regards to this, and if it's affecting any of your campaigns or your marketing strategies, please let us know so we can kind of get you started. So let's jump into it. So today, my name is Ernie Civic, and my fun fact is that I lived in 5 different countries. I am super excited to be sharing the iOS 14 updates with you all and going over strategies that will help navigate your success moving forward.
And I'm Michael Leback. I'm the Analytics Area Practice Manager at Community Boost. My fun fact is I'm traveling around the US in a self-converted camper van, and I'm excited to help you guys get prepared for iOS and make the most of your Facebook ads and your Instagram ads in this new framework.
That's awesome. And I think I need a better fun fact. I need to travel the country more. So let's get right into it. So Community Boost is a digital marketing agency that helps forward-thinking nonprofits accelerate and scale online revenue and impact. In 2020 alone, our team directly served over 232 nonprofits, drove over 7 million site visitors, and generated over $10 million in online donations. We also funded the Nonprofit Marketing Summit, which has helped inspire and educate over 15,000 nonprofit leaders this past year alone. We work with some pretty amazing organizations such as the Trevor Project, Souls for Souls, All Hands and Hearts, just to name a few. We are truly inspired by all of your missions and appreciate the work that you all do. Our mission is to really empower the social ventures changing the world and help you all navigate the fast-paced digital sector as effectively as possible. I do hope that today turns over a new page to your marketing and propels your organization to new heights. In today's agenda, these are the things that we'll be going over. The power of Facebook and Instagram ads for nonprofits. Apple versus Facebook. We want to break down the impact of iOS 14 and what is it. Our post iOS 14 playbook, our Facebook ads, and just our strategies going into it. 100% going to go into those Q&As with you all. And then also next steps. What can you do? Some analytic and Facebook audits if they're needed by Community Boost, and etc. As we jump into the power of Facebook and Instagram, I'd like to ask you all a question. What is marketing to you? To me, marketing is about gaining actual attention and traction, not just impressions. We have to market where people's attention is at, which in today's world is online and on mobile. And here's some statistics to kind of prove this point. In Q1 of 2021, 1.8 billion people used Facebook daily. In North America, the average time on social media spent was 2 hours and 25 minutes. 2 hours and 25 minutes per day. That's insanely long. And what makes this trend even more popular is that Facebook reaches 60% of social media users worldwide. So not only are people spending a lot of time on social media, they're likely spending it on Facebook or Instagram. And if that's not enough, this slide here is showing you that Facebook and Instagram reach 40% of the world's population and 75% of high-income earners, which naturally explains why they just raised over $5 billion in fundraisers alone. That's right, B with a billion. This arguably makes Facebook the most effective and scalable marketing channel around. It also works for our partners. We have managed over $4 million in ad spend and have seen an average of 2.5 times return on ad spend. And honestly, I've seen them upwards at about 58 times return on ad spend at times as well. And the trend continues to just continue to grow. And I'm excited to see how this year finishes. During our marketing summit, we sent out a survey asking our attendees on their thoughts, and this is what we kind of gathered from it. 51% were not seeing results, but believe in a potential of Facebook, while 22% want to try, but just don't have the time. And trust me, Facebook can be a difficult platform to navigate at times, but once it's mastered, it does pay for itself. So with all the success and data, Facebook appears to have won on all sides. Yet, we enter a new paradigm in the world. With the rollout of iOS 14, Facebook ads are changing as we know it. And before we begin into diving into the conversions API, the iOS 14, and all of these different things, I do want to mention something. I want to mention that for people here that are completely new, I want to please make sure you utilize these resources created just for you. Here you can kind of learn, the step-by-step progress, right? You'll learn how to build successful campaigns, create better ads, and really just learn how to optimize your strategies and your campaigns. So if you'd like, please utilize these resources, or if you need additional help, make sure you book a one-on-one so we can help you kind of go through that strategy and kind of audit your account as well if needed. So Apple versus Facebook. Let's break down the impact and what this actually means. The main takeaway here is going to be the screenshot on your right-hand side. Apple is allowing their customers front-facing privacy controls to choose whether they want to opt in on being tracked or opt out. So think about that for a second and think about what you would choose if this pop-up, popped in your screen as you went on to, click on a website or an app or something like that. Now, also think about the effects this is going to cause for your audience, building and personalization as more data becomes unavailable, since more people are opting out of personalized tracking. There are many reasons why Apple would roll this out. And one of those reasons is because Apple sees their people as customers. Customers they want to protect. Facebook, on the other hand, generates about 98% of its revenue from data. So naturally, these two giants view people a little differently. Facebook sees data, which converts to revenue. Apple sees people, which convert to sales and loyalty. However, Facebook and Google have already made a lot of these changes to ensure businesses, organizations alike, are able to continue to thrive with their platforms by implementing server-to-server tracking capabilities, also called Conversions API. If more and more people, choose to opt out, we naturally believe it will follow a domino effect. And this is how we kind of picture it. The effect, which would be, one, it would affect the tracking capabilities of Facebook, right? So that would lead to inaccurate conversion reporting and marketing efforts. The second thing that would follow would be, as more people remove themselves from targeting, it'll become harder and harder to identify those core audiences, which would naturally lead us right into, our number 3 step is wasted ad spend, since our personalization will technically be gone. But remember, great marketing is gaining traction where people's attention is at, and great nonprofit marketing must stay agile to continue to evolve. This is why nonprofits work with Community Boost, to maintain their speed even when going uphill. So let's break down the 4 areas that will be impacted by iOS 14. And they're going to be reporting, targeting and audience building, optimizations, and measurements. If you need to, we will send this recording your way afterwards, but if you're taking notes, these 4 are going to be really important to think about as we go through this. So first thing that's going to change is your reporting. If you happen to look into your Facebook account recently, you'd notice that the 28-day view and 28-day click attributions are gone. You're also going to notice that that whole kind of attribution window piece is missing as well. But something to keep in mind, just because less people are tracking doesn't mean they're not converting. We want to be clear on that. Just because your cost per acquisitions are up and conversions are down doesn't mean your ads are not working. This is simply just a new paradigm. People are just, the reporting is going to just be a little different. Community Boost does anticipate some tracking changes. Across many of our Community Boost accounts, we're seeing an average discrepancy decrease in about 20 to 30% from pre and post iOS 14 launch. And last thing is think about is data delays. Aggregated delays from lift measurement and demographic breakdowns will be unavailable. Data delayed up to 3 days post-install is the new normal. That means that when a conversion happens, we may not see it report on Facebook for up to 3 days. On your donation platform, your CRM, you may see it happen that very moment, or if you're using your conversions API, you may catch it right away. But if not, it's gonna be about a 3-day delay on some of those conversions. Next up is targeting your audiences and building changes. Again, this is not just for Apple users. The media assumption is that this is an isolated issue. It's not. Facebook is making global changes to prepare for the future when Android and all other web browsers take similar paths to Apple. So you're targeting audiences, they're gonna generate less data. So because less data is going to be collected, which means that your remarketing audiences will naturally be smaller. This impacts both your targeting and excluding. So we'll be leaning more heavily on direct lists and engaged audiences. Third thing is going to be your optimization changes. If you are in your Facebook accounts and you're doing some of the work yourself, keep in mind, when you're making your adjustments and your optimizations to your accounts, these are some of the things that you may want to think about. The first thing is your event cap. There's an 8-pixel event cap per domain for your optimizations. This means that an advertiser and a nonprofit can only now use maximum of 8 conversions per domain for their optimization, which means that, in the past we would have, view content, instant checkout, purchase conversions, subscription, would have all of these events kind of added. Right now we can't have as many as we want. It can only be 8 of them. So I really urge you all to revisit your strategy, revisit your funnel, and see, make sure you track the goals that really are important to you and kind of remove the ones that you don't need anymore. Something else to think about is less data. The new iOS update may hinder optimization, especially if there's not enough data points to optimize off of. This has already been a challenge for our nonprofit partners, so we'll really have to focus on collecting as much data as possible. And last thing is you want to focus on more testing. With so many unknowns still with iOS 14, it's going to be more important than ever to hyper test on your Facebook. This includes, looking at different bidding strategies, testing new types of creative, rolling out with Facebook's all their different rollouts and advertising platforms and strategies that they're doing, just kind of taking advantage of all of that to figure out what's really going to work. The last thing is measurement. Your reporting. The new default attribution, like I mentioned, is different. It's a little complicated and it will contribute to underreporting on organic as well as paid channels. We should also expect an increase in dark social traffic. Your top line revenue. Your team will have to change the way we think about reporting and measurement. This is really important because you can only measure so much through third-party tracking. You're going to need to get more involved in your partner's top line revenue. The approach is now going to be more omni-channel and holistic than it's ever been before. And this just naturally falls into that delayed reporting, right? Since iOS is gonna tell us 3 days later if something happened, it's really important that you look at your CRMs, you look at all your data, and to really contribute, like if you had an event, how many signups occurred, from your marketing, and to really break that down a little bit. And of course, changes in your app advertising. Going forward, the SCAD network API will be used by Facebook for all app advertising on iOS 14 devices. This will either restrict, aggregate, or delay all app event data. But I do want to say something. Before we begin, we wouldn't be extraordinary marketers if we abandoned the medium and threw in a towel. Earlier, I mentioned how effective and powerful Facebook was, and the current trends of people visiting the platform. So just because reporting may be off does not mean that the people are gone. They're still here. We just can't identify them all. So what do we do and how do we do? We ensure your audience is found and you continue your pace for success.
Awesome. So the scary part is over, kind of, right? We've identified our problem. We know what changes are happening, and we know how those changes are going to affect us. So now it's time for us to prepare for those changes. So in the next section, we will be going over a game plan to make sure that you and your team are ready for these iOS 14 changes. We're going to cover our recommendations to make the most of your implementation, to ensure that you get the most and the best data possible, to adjust your strategy to keep up with the moving framework that Facebook has created, and lastly, how to communicate the importance of keeping up with that framework and these changes to your board. But first, let's talk about our implementation recommendations. So Facebook has created a new framework for us to operate within to give us the best leverage over their platform. So here we have a couple of steps that you need to take to conform to that framework and to make sure that you're giving your ads the best chance of success. So some of these steps are tangible, right? Step-by-step things that you need to do on the Facebook platform, and others are more for you to just keep yourself organized. So first things first, you need to verify your domains with Facebook. That's all the domains that you will be using in order to, like either run your campaigns or to create conversions. So that includes your main domain, any like subsidiary domains. For example, if you're running like a 5K marathon and you have yourorg5k.org, you'll also need to verify that domain just so that Facebook knows that you own that domain. You're not running ads to some third-party website that might be promoting something that Facebook doesn't want on their platform. Second, you need to create a plan and decide which 8 events for your conversions you're going to track. Third, once you have that plan and you've decided which events you're going to track, you'll set up the aggregated event measurement, what Ernie was touching on earlier, within the Facebook platform. So you'll go in, you'll have your events that you want to track, or the actions on your site that you want to track. You'll select which events match to those actions on your site, and you'll enable them within Facebook. Fourth, you're going to launch on-platform campaigns to start building that first-party data. Next, you adjust your digital marketing strategy, both to leverage that first-party data and to make sure that you're operating within those aggregated events. And then last, you're going to look into the Conversion API, which is a really powerful tool that Facebook is providing us that helps us kind of get around some of that either cookie blocking, ad blocking, or the privacy issues that have arisen because of iOS 14. So one of the bigger changes, like I mentioned, is that you need to verify your domains. And you do this by placing a single line of code called a meta tag in the head element of your site. So it's similar to placing like Google Analytics or Google Tag Manager. And all this code does is tells Facebook that you actually have ownership over that site that you're running ads to. So how do we do this? First, you log into your business settings. You select brand safety under your menu items. You choose domain, and then you add your organization's website or websites. And then on the right-hand side, Facebook will provide you that meta tag. So you copy that code and you either send that meta tag to your developer to install on your website, or if you're installing it yourself, you would log into the back end of your site, add that code into the head section of your website. And then once that's done, you head back into Facebook, click brand safety again, and then you click verify. And that allows Facebook just to verify that you've placed the tag, you have access to the code of the website, which means you have ownership of that website. So next, we will talk about aggregated events, right? So you want to make a plan for which 8 events you want to track within Facebook. You're going to think about things like, is it important to me and my org to track the full funnel for, say, my donations? Or is it also important for my organization to not only know about donations, but to know about volunteers? The plan that you make in this section is going to inform how you divvy up those 8 allotted events. So once you have your plan, once you've thought through every step and everything that you feel is important for your org to track in order to measure your KPIs, you can head into Facebook and follow these steps here. So first you head into Events Manager, and then there's going to be a section. You can see it highlighted on the screen here. It says Aggregated Event Measurement. So this is within your Events Manager on the Facebook Business Manager side of things. Once you select that Aggregated Event Measurement section, you'll choose the domain that you want to select the events for. And then in that section, you select your top 8 events for that domain. Then once you have this set up, you go back into your Ads Manager and you update the tracking in your ads. So you update which conversions you're optimizing for within your ads. Next, this is an even more important piece that is going to help you and your org prepare for the future, and that's start collecting first-party data. So you might be asking, what is first-party data? So first-party data is data that you collect directly from your audience or your user base. This means you're not collecting data silently through something like a Facebook pixel or some JavaScript that isn't displayed on the front end. You're asking users on your site directly. So examples of this would be, something like an email sign-up form or even purchase history data in your CRM. This is important because it's collecting all the information that you need about people that are taking the actions that you want them to take, and you already have their consent, right? When someone purchases something from your website, they are willingly entering that email address, their first name, their last name. So it's not silently collecting information and is much less invasive for the users. So one interesting thing to note here is that if you do end up leveraging the Facebook Conversions API, which here at Community Boost, we highly recommend doing this. It's going to give you even more leverage over that data. You can find out not only, for example, that people have signed up for your email list, but also whether or not they're actually opening those emails. And that's powerful because you can then hit 2 different audiences, the openers and the non-openers, with different ads on Facebook, right? So if you want people to open your emails and they're not, you can start to target them with very specific ads on Facebook. So next is adjusting your marketing strategy, right? So because we're working within a new framework or working under a modified framework, we have to adjust our strategy to better work with the tools that are available to us. Also, Facebook loves to reward users that are leveraging all of the features of the platform. So it's always worth looking into, like creating more community engagement on your Facebook page, right? Getting people to like and to comment, asking engaging questions or posting engaging content, which is always easier said than done. But when it happens, Facebook really rewards that behavior. Second, start to utilize on-platform strategies such as, fundraisers. You can do a birthday fundraiser each year. Start creating some lead generation. Use the Facebook Messenger. Start using chatbots. Things like this put you in a better spot in terms of Facebook's algorithm because you're leveraging every small piece of Facebook's platform. Third, you want to increase your organization's daily posts on Facebook and Instagram. It's not always about quality content, and sometimes it can feel daunting to post daily, but even a small post, even just a real post of what you're doing in your day-to-day work helps. It's showing that you're engaged on the platform, which Facebook will ultimately reward through their algorithm. So it will automatically detect that you're posting daily, you're posting on your stories, things along those lines. And then lastly, kind of tying into this, is utilizing your stories and the donate buttons. So speaking of operating under a modified framework, we have to adjust our strategy to better work with the tools that are available to us, right? So the Conversions API is a new tool that is available to us. Facebook has released a completely new way of tracking events. And this Conversions API uses server-side tracking rather than relying on the typical front-end tracking of the Facebook pixel. So essentially what CAPI does is it enables you to send events directly from your server back to the Facebook Business Manager, so you don't have to worry about the pixel being blocked by things like ad blockers. So the benefits then, right, are you're getting more data from conversion actions, you're avoiding ad blockers, and you're just in general increasing the amount of data points that you get to work with for your Facebook ads. So why is that important to us? Why is the Conversions API, or CAPI, important to us? Well, first and foremost, the whole reason it was developed is to help you adhere to the big privacy laws that have been released recently, such as CCPA or GDPR, while still collecting all the data that you need to properly optimize your campaigns and continue to increase that return on investment. So it is important because it does just that, right? It helps you achieve the results that you're used to achieving, despite it being more difficult to reach the audience that you want to reach. And second, if we leverage CAPI with the Facebook pixel, ultimately we end up getting a better picture of our entire funnel. So you can collect top of the funnel info that's like your, page views, your interest events, things like button clicks, other things along those lines. So you can collect that info with the pixel, and then the bottom of the funnel, or your conversions, the most important piece, you can collect with the Conversions API.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Michael. I think my favorite piece on there is definitely going to be that lead generation. For those that haven't tried that, it's a really cool thing that I'll cover also in the strategy Rex. But essentially, it's this little pop-up that happens on Facebook, and it auto-populates all the information, and it's just perfect. It's a perfect thing for like newsletter signups and events and things like that. So let's dive into strategy recommendations. Because of iOS, what's happening? How can we strategize moving forward? The obstacle is the way. Facebook and Instagram ads are still an incredible channel because that's where people's attention is at, right? We mentioned that earlier. So some of the things we're going to be covering regarding the strategy recommendations are creative upgrades. We want to start creating better ads. Video is going to be really important here, and we'll explain why. You also want to kind of bridge your reporting. We want to figure out a mix of internal reporting and Facebook, since a lot of the data points are going to be, different in various channels. And lastly, we're going to talk about keeping users on platform and why this is probably going to be the most important piece to the iOS update moving forward. So let's dive into the creative upgrades. If you've been to our past, webinars or events and you heard me speak, personalization is something that I'm always talking about. And again, here, personalization is key. You want to make sure that your ads are speaking directly to your target audience. It's so important, since your targeting, capabilities are going to be lower now with iOS. And in the past, it was so important because you want to make sure you're targeting to the right person and, using the correct tonality with that individual or user. So first thing you want to start focusing on is shortening your headlines, right? You want to keep short headlines. You want to keep your headlines, shortened to the point. Since most data and most people are, shows us that they're on mobile, having a long headline is going to easily be bypassed if it's, if it's too long and if it's not to the point. So we want to make sure that they're able to see it on their tiny little screens on their phones, but we also want to make sure that it's, urgent and it's a great call to action. Next thing is video is king. Something that is really important. You want to start introducing more videos to your ads to build more top funnel audiences. Video is really important because, one, it's on platform, it's as an ad or a post, but it also allows you to create audiences within it. So Facebook has the capability of, letting us know how many people watched 3 seconds of the video, 10 seconds, half of the video, or the whole thing. And because keeping users on platform is so important, and it kind of, bypasses that iOS update for you, having videos is going to be really beneficial when it comes to creating new audiences moving forward. Next thing is you want to keep your text short. Just like your headlines, you want to be straight to the point, because everyone's on their mobile and they're not going to want to read paragraphs of information. Text on ads can be lengthy at times as more people are going, and viewing your content on their phone. It's really important to start creating, those shorter message points. Like I said, we've looked at, we ran a bunch of A/B tests, long copy versus short, and short always wins, just because it kind of gets that message across with a quick, scan through versus having to read through. The last thing is dynamic ads. You want to utilize Facebook's dynamic ads to allow best ad performance. Facebook is really cool. They have an algorithm build a lot, around a dynamic section where, you can select a bunch of different images and texts, and then Facebook is going to display them to users most likely to convert or most likely to interact with that specific image. And it'll optimize it for you. It'll show, that picture, that ad for you. So it's really cool. Next thing is bridge reporting. Reporting on your marketing metrics will become harder. So we encourage you to connect your Pixel and your conversions API with your donation platform's CRM so you can break down the results and your actual cost per acquisition. First thing you want to do is, dive into your CRM data. You want to keep a close eye on old data versus new. Next up is get clear metrics with your API. Using your conversions API, you want to get the most out of your conversion data. When combined with the Pixel, like Michael said earlier, you'll be able to see your complete funnel and your campaign success. So, looking at reporting, you can say this is the number of people that clicked on our ad and went to the home page. And now you can also then from there see of those individuals how many completed the donation process or the sign up event process. And having those two in there will kind of give you a better picture in regards to that. Last thing is you want to learn how engagement drives results. This is really important to me because you want to measure engagement and metrics that create community and drive awareness, which ultimately deliver donations. Having a ton of engagement and creating a community on your Facebook is really important. And Facebook loves to, they like to reward us for that, such as giving us lower cost per acquisitions and just allowing you to spend less money on their platform while still targeting the right people. And that all comes from creating that engagement and metrics. Having social proof is just really important when it comes to your ads and your posts. Next up is keeping users on platform. We talked about this. This is going to be, I think, the most important piece to it. And the lead generation on there is probably the first thing that I want to jump into. But you want to keep users on platform. And when it comes to lead generation, you want to do it on platform as well. So many times we work with nonprofits, we send people to the website to sign up for a fundraiser or sign up for a newsletter or a volunteer. And a great way to kind of bypass that moving forward, since iOS will kind of be blocking a lot of our actions, is you want to keep them on that platform. And Facebook does a really good job by the ad pops up, they click the button and it kind of auto populates their first and last name and email, and it's done. They don't have to adjust their screen doesn't have to go into the website. They don't have to leave, the platform. It all kind of happens at the same time right then and there. And it only takes a few seconds, which is awesome. Next up is you want to utilize Messenger and chatbots. This is something that we are starting to push really heavily here at Community Boost, but you want to utilize Messenger and chatbots to get users to communicate with you. This is a really good way to get your audiences, engaged, but also to build that first party data. What's really cool about the Messenger and chatbots is that when someone clicks on that ad and starts that conversation on the Messenger, Facebook collects their information and you now are collecting that first party data. We can actually see the first and last name and the Facebook ID of this individual that started a conversation. It also allows us to start sending these people messages back, not just in that campaign specifically, but for future campaigns. So I know, we're coming up on Giving Tuesday, year end. Having a strong messenger or a chatbot built audience is going to be really key because we'll be able to send these people messages right on Facebook and it's going to, work really well. I think the open rates on Messenger are about 80%. So just something to think about. And in fundraisers, it just got better. Facebook fundraisers and additional, brand awareness campaigns are going to be essential in building targeted remarketed audiences. It's really cool because fundraisers like birthdays, different season fundraisers are really helpful. It allows the donor to spread the love that they have for your organization with their friends and family and get those people involved without them personally giving themselves and then kind of saving it, for another campaign or a goal that you may have. So fundraisers are a great way to just market to new additional audiences, but then also raise funds while building those audiences.
Awesome. So in this next section, we're just going to talk about our recommendations for communicating these changes and your plan to ultimately get your board on board. So hopefully your board understands these concepts, but as we're all aware, that isn't always the case because updating your strategy to match the updates on platforms such as Facebook requires, time, and it requires work. So boards can sometimes be resistant to these changes. Luckily, we have a couple of tips here to hopefully help you communicate what needs to happen in a concise and easily digestible way. First things first, create an easy and digestible deck. Feel free to steal from this one. We communicate a lot of high level ideas in bullet points. And so it makes it easier for your board to see, exactly what needs to happen, the action items, and why they're important. Second, Ernie touched on this a little bit earlier, but better bridge reporting is going to be mandatory. So you're going to have to create more insightful reporting from multiple sources, not only your Google Analytics or not only your Facebook Business Manager, but you're going to have to pull data from your CRM, from Google Ads. You're going to have to start to combine these data sources to create a better, more full picture of what's actually going on. And CAPI is especially important here, the conversions API on Facebook, because it'll help bridge the gap on your conversion data, right? You're going to be able to see a more full picture of the number of people that are actually converting using the conversion API on Facebook. And then last is just put the time in to create that clear strategy and make a detailed plan so that your board can get on board with that and understand the action items that need to take place in order for these things to happen.
Awesome. Well, before we dive into the Q&A session, I want to extend a one-on-one analytics audit to everyone here today to help you all align on the iOS 14 recommendations and to make sure your accounts are set up for success. Now, this piece is really important because Facebook will be turning off active campaigns if they are not set up accordingly within the next few weeks. The reason for that is the whole verification that we touched on earlier. Facebook wants to make sure that the domains that the ads are being sent to, you as a nonprofit actually own those domains and they're not ran by someone else. So if you don't have your domains verified, your campaigns will be turned off if they're not set up correctly. So please utilize the resource, book that time with us, and we will send you that, the complete guide on how to set that up and how we can, just so that way you are active and you don't kind of skip any beats with your current campaign. It's just really important because if things do get turned off, then you're kind of resetting the process and the algorithm, and there's no need for it. Feel free to book that and we can kind of help you out as soon as possible. So with further ado, let's jump into some of the questions and hopefully we can answer all those for you.
Yeah, awesome. So first question we got is from Rachel, and she asked, will the iOS 14 update affect organic Facebook and Instagram engagements?
Yeah, it definitely will. So the way that what iOS update is essentially is giving people the ability to opt out of like being tracked and the way they're clicking on what they're clicking on. So when it comes to your on-platform stuff, actually, if they're engaging with your posts or your Instagram already and they're your followers, they're not going to be affected. But if they are a new person and you're trying to get them to come to your page to comment, like, and share, then it potentially will be, because targeting that individual, try to get them, try to find them and to get them to your page will be the iOS process of what we'll try to do. But the people that are currently following you and they are currently kind of in your funnel, it won't affect them because you still will pop, your message or your post will still pop up in their newsfeed and they'll be able to interact with you without any problems.
Awesome. So we have another question from Winnie, and she asks, how would you effectively track an event that is hosted on another domain that you don't own, i.e. ticketing sites? This is a great question because this is a problem that we've seen quite a bit, especially with, nonprofit organizations who leverage a lot of these different tech platforms or like things like Eventbrite. They're running into an issue where you have hundreds, if not thousands of other organizations using that same platform, and they're all trying to verify that domain. And so this is kind of a blind spot for a lot of these big platforms. We have a couple of partners who are really great at, either domain masking or allowing you to verify these domains. But to answer this question, it kind of depends. It's on a case-by-case basis. So sometimes if your platform allows domain masking, that's perfect. As soon as you verify your main domain, and if you've masked your platform under like a subdomain, then you're automatically, like grandfathered in. So you approve your main domain and your subdomain is automatically approved. If it's a different case, like an Eventbrite, unfortunately, at the moment, is not verifiable. So kind of depends. It's case by case.
Yeah, I would just add to that. So if it is, let's say like Eventbrite, there is ways to set up offline conversion tracking, and something we could look into as well. And I know we brought up the conversions API, but that could also be a thing to look into for you. So I would look into that and see how you can match up your offline conversions to that specific event. And I think that that could also be a really good way to track that.
Totally. Yeah, that's a great point. And I would just suggest, if you have like a specific platform that you have in mind, definitely book time with us for that audit so that we can look at your specific case, just because a lot of these platforms are so different that it will ultimately, depend on the tech stack that you're using specifically. So definitely book some time with us.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we have another sort of question here. It looks like it's kind of a statement, but it's some great information from Lisa. She says, if I'm not mistaken, those 8 events to track can be replaced when needed. For example, if you're running a conversion campaign one month and all events are being used, you can swap the one out the next month when you run a different campaign. You'll already have your functionality and reporting from your first campaign.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. The only issue with it that we've found so far, especially with some of the nonprofits we work with, is we want to continue collecting that data, right? So we don't want to remove that event. So for example, if we have, so sometimes we run campaigns in a tiered method. So we like to keep, our top funnel being built, let's say our initiate checkout audience continue to be built. We sometimes like to keep that event running and keep that, tracking piece active, so that way we can keep collecting those top funnel audiences for remarketing purposes later on. Just because the Facebook algorithm likes to have a certain amount of individuals in that group for like very accurate targeting and for like success of campaigns moving forward. So that's the only thing I would add to it. But 100% agree that, if you did have an event that you don't want to, that you're not running anymore for that specific campaign and you don't need it, you can definitely swap them out. We do that with like custom conversions as well. So thank you for that.
Awesome. So we have a question from Catherine, and she asks, how can you verify a domain if you use a third-party company for your donations? So Catherine, that kind of falls under the same umbrella that Wendy's question fell under, and it kind of depends. It depends on which platform you're using for your donations. For you specifically, I would definitely recommend booking some time with us, just so we can kind of take a look, give you a more specific answer for your case. But as a general answer, kind of touches on what Ernie was saying earlier. You can leverage, the conversions API on Facebook. You can do offline conversions, or Lisa mentioned this also in the chat. I noticed that you can set up some domain masking or domain forwarding. If you use a platform that allows for that, then you can verify that domain if it's on a subdomain. But if your platform doesn't allow that, then you have to do like a little more finagling in order to get that tracking working. So Catherine, definitely would recommend you take a look at that audit form. Just fill it out. Let us know what specifically platforms, tech stacks, third-party things that you're using, so that we can give you a more specific answer. Awesome. So I have a question from Sydney here. It says, I recently received a notification that there was a pixel issue on my ads, which was caused by a significant dip in purchase events and is causing issues with ads delivery. Do you know if this is an effect of the iOS 14 update?
It most likely would be if we, so sometimes Facebook pixels are just gonna, Facebook is just a difficult platform. I think they just go through updates and they don't tell anyone. I know with me, I pop on Facebook and it just looks completely different times with errors and problems. And sometimes it's just their own internal things that need to be refreshed and updated. But we did receive a lot of errors with the new iOS. So iOS kicked in, just for everyone to be aware, pretty much beginning of May. So last like few days of April, beginning of May is when it fully rolled out. And as of right now, Facebook is going through a ton of different like pretty much campaigns and ad accounts, and they're turning things off if they're not verified and this and that. But while that's happening, they're also having to update all the audiences that are currently sitting inside of your pixel funnel or your pixel, like all your data. So 100% could be that your pixels, you're receiving that error because your audiences are being adjusted, and you're probably having to, recreate that audience. Or I click there. I think the update sometimes in your ad set will tell you to click, it's like a little update button you have to click to go ahead and recreate your like lookalike or recreate the remarketing audience, or is letting you know that there's going to be less people in that funnel that you're going to have to retarget. So it could be that. You could also take a screenshot of the error you're seeing and then send it to us. You can attach it to that audit form, and then we'll make sure we look at it and kind of respond to it accordingly. But yes, we did have a lot of errors with pixels with a new iOS update because they're having to re-update all of their data and information and essentially like remove users that are already like living inside of it.
Awesome. Great question. So we have some more, this isn't really a question, but it's some more great information from Lisa. She says, I set up a vanity URL, either a completely new branded domain that forwards to the platform's domain, or a subdomain on my own website that forwards to the platform's domain. So I think this was in response to Winnie's question, which was asking about verifying like a third-party domain. And this is perfect. Yeah, Lisa, this is totally correct. If it looks like, Winnie, you were using OneCause, and so I'm not totally sure what all of the capabilities of OneCause are, but if that is possible to set up, either domain forwarding or domain masking through a subdomain, that is definitely the recommended route. It'll be much easier for you to set that tracking up within Facebook's Business Manager. But if that's not possible, there are a couple other options, but it just requires, a little more time, a little more research, and ultimately a little more work to get that set up. Awesome. Well, it looks like that is all the questions we have. If there's any last minute questions from anybody else, please feel free to type them into the chat or toss them into the Q&A function. I just want to throw out a reminder. I know we've mentioned it a couple of times, but sometimes these specific tech questions can be just that, very specific. And so if you have a specific question about, your platforms or the combination of, third-party ticketing, donation, volunteer form submission platforms that you're using, please feel free to book some time with us. We'd be happy to go through your specific setup and just give you some recommendations on what we think would be the best way to enable that tracking. So ultimately, you're getting the return on investment that you want on Facebook.
Awesome. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. Please, let us know. I think I just sent a poll as well for you all. So if you do need help, again, I just want to make sure that you're all, not affected by any of the updates coming up. So let us know if you need help there. If not, we're here for you. So whatever it is that you need, just please let us know. But that's it. Thank you all for coming, and hope you all enjoyed.